Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on Shadow IT. October is Halloween and it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So today I'm going to talk about two things that are scary: monsters and Shadow IT. Now you can get a copy of this presentation by visiting www.falconitservices.com and clicking on the Learning Materials link. You will be able to access both the video as well as a PDF of the PowerPoint. Now this is part of our CIO series. As you know, many large corporations are able to afford a CIO who sets policy, especially when it comes to concerning security. Small and mid-sized businesses may not afford to have such a luxury. So for this reason, at Falcon IT Services, we try to help our partners and customers by presenting videos of the CIO series, which are intended for business managers, owners, and executives of the company, that they could get a better understanding of some of the functions of IT security and help them make better decisions when it comes to implementing policies. Now, of course, we meet with you, we make recommendations, and we discuss policies, but these videos are really meant for you to be better informed by the time that we do sit down with you and have these discussions. You can have a better understanding of the overall holistic approach to IT security. So let's begin. What is Shadow IT? Shadow IT is a term often used to describe information technology systems and solutions built and used inside the organizations without the explicit organizational approval. For example, if an employee decides that he or she wants to use a database such as Access to keep specific records, but fails to go through an approval process, allowing business executives, managers, or the IT department to know that such a database exists, this is Shadow IT. If an employee goes online, signs up for a software as a service, which is one of the more common types of Shadow IT projects, without notifying anyone in the company that this has been done, this is Shadow IT too. In other words, Shadow IT are employees who use IT systems without the explicit consent or knowledge of the organization for which they work for. And why is Shadow IT becoming a concern? Traditionally, organizations depend on IT departments to set up accounts, install productivity software, and create restrictions and policies around these services. Today, SaaS, or Software as a Service, allows users to go online, open accounts, and begin using these services with no security oversight, policy oversight, other than perhaps the defaults that have been applied by the SaaS developer. SaaS creates the illusion that IT is a simple commodity that can be mastered by laymen, much in the same way as legal docs and WebMD have made some people believe that they are well equipped to self-diagnose medical problems or tackle legal issues without counsel. Employees who are overconfident of their abilities or lack awareness of the dangers concerning shadow IT often resort to implementing software as a service to solve business problems quickly and efficiently. So these SaaS programs, they're not malicious, they're not bad. They're actually productive programs. In many cases, they can be very beneficial to an organization. When they become Shadow IT is when an employee sets up these programs or systems or services without any type of process or knowledge by the administrators of the organization. Now, what are some common Shadow IT scenarios? Some of the ones that I've seen, which are very common, are marketing departments. They sign up to mail services such as MailChimp to send bulk mail. Sometimes employees will sign on to a multitude of free CRM packages that are available online to track their sales, track their customers. Obviously, a lot of people use Dropbox, SkyDrive, and other web-based storage services to store data, backup data, or share data with others. We have also often seen email accounts being used for business purposes, but these email accounts are not the actual business account, but perhaps a personal email account of the employee. Sometimes employees will set up an email account and have, for example, their name dot the business name at theprovider.com. That's also something very common, and they use that for business. We've also seen customer service departments that open up social media accounts arbitrarily and use that to communicate with their clients. And another thing that's very common are telecommuters or employees that use free remote control software in order to access their work computers from home or while they're traveling. And finally, users are bringing IoT or Internet of Things devices into work. So how common is shadow IT? If you search for free CRM, you'll see that there are a multitude of CRM products online that can be set up quickly. All you need is to set up a username and a password, and all you would need is an email address for that. In many cases, they can be set up for free. Charges don't begin to incur until later on, and some of them are just free overall. So what is the allure of shadow IT? Why do people do it? Well, for one, it's easy to set up. It's a simple sign-up process in many cases. If you've ever signed up for an email address from a public email provider, it probably took you 5 or 10 minutes, no more than that. The second thing might be familiarity. If the person came from another company that was using an online CRM package, they may want to use the same online CRM package here to track their customers. There's also job security. Originators of shadow IT are in control of the shadow IT. When they sign up for a service, they usually use their personal email address and set themselves up as the owner of that service. This affords them job security. Good for them, may not be so good for your business or for your organization. There's also secrecy, circumvention of policy, and there's no need for approval. So a person could go, and instead of having to get approval for a particular project that they might want to do, like a bulk mail campaign, they fear that they may not get that approval, so they just go and sign up and do it on their own. There's also circumvention of policy. Sometimes when you set up software as a service, since you're the owner of it, you really could set the policies that you want, or you could leave the default policies that the provider has set up. And of course, there's always secrecy. Sometimes people want to do things that they don't want their employer to know about. All this creates a certain level of empowerment for the user. This can make them more productive. It can bring benefits to the company, but if not done in a proper way, it can be detrimental to the organization. So how prevalent is it? As you can see here on this slide that I found on the internet from Cisco Security, some of their large customers were asked to estimate the number of cloud service providers used within their organization. The average was 91. When Cisco went in there and started doing discovery, they actually discovered that whereas the average that the company thought was being used was 91, there were actually more than 1,000 services that were being used online. So that means that there were over 1,000 shadow IT projects in many of these companies. Creating a process to implement software as a service. There are many possible implications when implementing software as a service as a shadow IT project. Employees should be informed about the dangers of shadow IT and urged to consult with their manager and not install anything arbitrarily. SAAS should be discussed by a committee of stakeholders before implementing any project. There should be a process for vetting and approving all SAAS projects in order to prevent shadow IT. So if you give your employees a way to use the software that they want to use or that they're familiarized with, but have them go through a process, you'll be less likely to have shadow IT. They may instead see, well, I like this particular CRM package, let me see if I can get it approved. One of the implications of software as a service, or when used as shadow IT, is that there could be some hidden costs involved and wasted time. Do you really want your salespeople to be tinkering with a CRM system, to be implementing, setting it up, providing their own technical support, calling for tech support when something happens? It could be a waste of time for them. It takes them away from their real job. Do you want your HR department struggling with a time management system? Of course not. All this should be done by the IT department. That way your different departments can go on with the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, instead of dealing with providing themselves with learning and technical support on their shadow IT projects. Many of the times that employees set up shadow IT projects, they have to provide their own technical support. So when they don't know how to use something, or when something's not working right, they usually will resort to Google to search for and try to fix or remediate the problem. Or they'll have to call the company's support themselves to try to remediate the problem. This could be a waste of time for them. It keeps them from doing their job that they're supposed to be doing. Now, another implication is confidentiality, availability, and compliance when you're dealing with shadow IT projects. When you set up a project as shadow IT, is it going to have the same? Is it going to be backed up properly? Is it going to have the same security? Is it going to have the same retention policy or be compliant the way that a traditional IT project that's vetted would be? Has the shadow IT originator, or the person that sets it up, have they done their due diligence? Have they read the terms and conditions before they sign up to something? Are email campaigns that are being sent using shadow IT programs, are they compliant? Is the employee aware that there may be some compliant laws that affect bulk mail campaigns? Are files that are being shared with unauthorized users? And is the SaaS provider mining data? These things are often not taken into consideration in shadow IT, because the people that are setting this up are doing it quickly, arbitrarily, and do not go through a specific process. There are also implications with cloud-based storage when being implemented as a shadow IT project. Has the shadow IT originator, the person who has set this up, properly secured it with access controls? Is it publicly available? Is it secured to specific people? Are they backing it up? Does the SaaS provider allow its users to have simple passwords? In your organization, you may require lengthy password, 10 or more characters, with uppercase, lowercase, and certain complexity features. But the SaaS provider may let users use passwords like password 1234. This would be a security blunder. And again, it's out of your control as an organization when it's being done without your knowledge. Now, Amazon has devoted a commendable effort to providing quality training to businesses seeking to implement its cloud computing solution into their already existing infrastructure. But despite these attempts, it is still threateningly easy for uninformed users to make costly mistakes. We always read online about some security breach, and some of the data disclosure breaches have occurred with online storage, where users upload data into an online drive thinking that data is secured, when that data actually has not been secured and is available to anyone to see. Another implication is a dysfunctional environment. IT is an engineering system, and it has requirements of an engineering system. Now ask any engineer and they'll tell you that the enemy of engineering is lack of uniformity, lack of controls, lack of a centralization and process, lack of structure, and lack of proper documentation. With shadow IT projects, these things probably don't exist because they're not being implemented by trained systems integrators or systems engineers. Another implication could be loss of data. Shadow IoT operators may be storing data on a personal storage account online. When they leave the company, you have no way of recovering that data. That data may not be backed up. If the person is storing data on a USB drive or USB stick, and that USB stick gets lost or the USB drive fails, that data is probably not being backed up, especially if the IT department doesn't know about it. So this is another thing that should be taken into consideration, and therefore imperative to make users aware that shadow IT is not acceptable. Non-compliance. Some organizations have to meet regulatory requirements from entities such as FISMA for federal, CTPAT for import-exporters, or HIPAA for healthcare. Users that implement shadow IT may not be aware of this, and so they may not be compliant. Is the place where they're storing their data has been approved by HIPAA? Or is it HIPAA compliance? These are things that have to be looked at. Also, you may have signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, your company, its employees. But if the data is being handled in cloud-based storage outside your organization, and there haven't been proper securities implemented, or the person that is using it has allowed access of that data to be shared with people who have not signed the NDAs, then that could also be an issue. That's these types. Originally sign up for a software as a service. There may be a minimal cost involved at the beginning, but those costs may increase later on. As you become more and more reliant on the service, you might find out that it costs more to operate than what you had originally planned. There could also be costs involved with recovering the data, such as if you have an online backup. The cost of backing up to a software as a service or storage as a service provider may be minuscule, but the cost of recovering data may be great, and you would find this out only if you read the terms and conditions. Also, there may be costs involved in migrating data. If later on you decide that you want to implement a different kind of system, that data may not be able to be moved, downloaded, or migrated to another system at all, and sometimes even may have costs involved. Also, if you don't read the terms and conditions, you may not find out that your data is being mined. And you should also take into consideration that if there is a data breach, what would be the costs involved. Now, BYOD, bring your own device, is a type of shadow IT if the devices are unauthorized. Oftentimes, employees bring their personal devices and plug them in to an organization's network without explicit approval. Some of these devices are USB memory sticks, USB drives, web cameras. They could bring their phones for cellular hotspots, their personal laptops, tablets, or even IoT devices. In the two diagrams, as you can see, the picture on the left is a network hotspot. Somebody could come in, plug that into one of the network ports or one of the Ethernet ports on your network, and that device will produce a Wi-Fi. It's a Wi-Fi access point, and therefore employees could come in, plug that in, and then have their laptops or their phones or their devices connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot that they've created, which runs through your network. I don't need to tell you what the dangers of this are. Aside from the fact that the Wi-Fi may not be properly secured with passwords or security protocols, bringing devices that are not part of your network and that may or may not have the same security functions or antivirus programs that you may require in your organization presents a problem. These devices can be brought into your network and bring infections into your network that they have from wherever they were brought from. So how do we avoid shadow IT? Shadow IT is a bit of a conundrum because some of these software as a service products, they could be very beneficial. They could help your employees be very productive and be very efficient. But if they are used without proper process, then that's when they become shadow IT, and that's when they become possibly become a problem. So how do we avoid this? The first thing is as a business, you should provide your employees with comparable systems so that they do not need to go outside of the traditional business or approved software to get their job done efficiently. For example, one common driver of shadow IT is sending large files by email. Many organizations restrict their email attachment sizes to 10 megabytes for good reason. Sometimes employees, especially in engineering and graphics departments, need to send files that are larger than this. If you do not provide a company-condoned alternative method, then you will have a problem with shadow IT, because to get their job done, they will need to go outside of your organization and do things on their own in order to have these files sent. So what can you do? Well, there are many options. You could set up your own, for example, Dropbox account that is known by the company, secured by the company, and documented by the company that they can use rather than letting them go at it on their own. Another thing you could do is provide written documentation to employees and put it as part of their documentation package so that they are aware that going it alone and doing shadow IT is something that is not tolerated within the organization. And so then they should be aware that there is a procedure when they want to install and use an application. Now, a business should create an approval process for all the software as a service applications that take into account the real cost, the security, the availability, and the confidentiality. All the stakeholders should be in some type of forum or meeting so that all the stakeholders that are involved can discuss this, look at what the benefits are, look at what the cost can be, look at what the implications might be, and then make a definitive decision. For example, if you are going to use software as a service to run a bulk mail system, you may want to have people from your marketing department involved, because after all, they are probably the ones that are going to use this system. So it would be a good idea to see what systems they used before, what they prefer, and if the systems meet the requirements. You may want to have your IT department in to discuss what are the operational difficulties, what are the regulations involved, and you may have your executive branch involved to make sure that there are rules set in place so that whatever is being sent out is in accordance with your corporate governance. Another thing is, for example, imagine an employee starts sending out bulk email. It might work for some businesses and it might not work for another. If you are a business that sells low-end commodity products, hey, maybe bulk mail may work for you. But imagine if you are in the luxury yacht, luxury real estate business and you cater to high-end clients. How would they feel if they start receiving cheesy-looking bulk email? It may dilute your brand. So these things all should be taken into consideration, and the only thing that really would help you would be to set up a committee or a quorum and sit down and discuss these things with all the stakeholders that are involved in the project. Now, you can also use hardware and software controls to find and detect users of shadow IT. This is a very good way of preventing shadow IT. You can block access to SAAS sites that are not specifically approved. For example, if your company has an approved method of remote access, VPN, well, then you may want to block SAAS services that allow employees to remote control into their PCs using a web gateway. You should disable devices that are not necessary by a particular group of employees. For example, if maybe your engineers need to have USB mass storage access, but the rest of the company may not, so only approve those devices and allow them on the computers where they are absolutely necessary. Definitely, and part of good practice is to disallow the installation of software and remove administrative access on local computers and devices. You can prevent unauthorized devices from connecting to your network through the use of an NPS or network policy server or a network policy monitoring system or management system. You can also use access point detections to detect access points, Wi-Fi, things like that that have been in the vicinity of your network. And of course, you should always monitor your network and internet usage for signs that people are doing shadow IT. Well, we thank you for attending this presentation, and we all hope you have a very enjoyable day.